board, but is enough for a quorum. To begin, I'll welcome any comments, oral or written, concerning the ISL, or I'll start the public hearing. Any comments, oral or written, concerning the ISL continued participation program?
So I need to turn the volume down.
There you go. Okay.
We'll get there.
Okay. So,
Nothing received. Oh, there's Carol.
Yeah.
okay, now we're joined by Director Sand. And Darlene, did we receive any written comments? Okay, so seeing no comments, oral or written, concerning the public hearing, I will adjourn.
Carol, I'm just gonna do a quick sound check. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Okay. And we can see you now.
Sorry
Okay.
about that.
Okay,
You're fine.
We'll call, with the public hearing adjourned, we'll call the regular March school board meeting to order. And go ahead.
At Decorah Community School District, we embrace student learning and well-being as our fundamental purpose. We will, in partnership with our students, families, and community, make the world a better place. The mission of the Decorah Community School District is learning, thriving, creating our legacy. The vision of the Decorah Community School District is Decorah Community School District will be a collaborative, innovative, learning center organization, empowering students to embrace their personal strengths and create their future.
Okay, first on the agenda is old business, and this is first item is the second reading of code 405.2, licensed employee qualifications, recruitment and selection.
And this was a small change. We just took out the wording Teach Iowa and put for the state website so that we're not locked into having the wrong as the state shifted from Teach Iowa to Iowa Works this year. So small change, but get us compliant with what we're doing.
And now it's generic language.
And now it's generic language. So if in fact the state would change from Iowa Works to something different, we don't have to change. We don't have to have another board meeting.
We can always hope that it doesn't change as often as the directors of the Department of Ed do.
We hope not. We would love it if they would switch from anything off of Iowa Works, but yeah. Or maybe Iowa Works will get better, but it's not the best system for education. But that's not what we're doing here. We're just doing a second reading of this policy.
Yeah. Any discussion by the board on the second reading?
I don't have any questions.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, approval of the agenda.
I move to approve.
I
I'll
second.
Okay, further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Next is approval of consent items. Minutes of the February meeting, bills and personnel. So directors, once you have a chance to review, please speak up with any questions, concerns, or I'll accept a motion to approve.
I move to approve the consent items, last month's minutes, the bills listings, and personnel listing. I'll also make note that it seems that our two rocks slung at one bird has come up successful.
Oh. Yes, it has.
I will second the motion.
Any questions or further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, next is open forum and communication from the public. I see all familiar faces in the room. Okay, so with no communication from the public, next on the agenda is the presentation. And we could have amended the agenda to remove this, but Tim, do you want to give us an update on the?
Yeah,
presentation?
elementary was gonna present on SEB and therapeutic grant. And I just talked to Shanna today with it kind of being virtual and not sure how that was gonna work for a couple board members and Brian not able to attend. That I gave her the option of going next month and she was fine with that. So now we're gonna work on the schedule. If elementary goes next month, do we have two in April or maybe, it sounds like maybe high school might work out for high school to go in May and so, but I did want her to come and just present to two people, not that it wouldn't have worked for Carol and Aaron and Brian, we can always go back and watch, but I just kind of made her that offer and she would prefer to come next month, so.
That sounds good.
I think she has stickers to pass out and that doesn't work virtually.
Well, we appreciate that then. We would not want to miss out on stickers.
Okay, next on the agenda is new business. First, the adoption of the ISL continued participation resolution.
And this is our resolution to continue the instructional support levy. And so we can adopt as presented. This will extend our instructional support levy for 5 years. Kathy, I'm kind of looking at you to make sure I say the right thing. 5 years. And it ends currently in 2026. And we've had it for a long time. Okay, that's our summary.
I will move to approve the resolution continuing our participation in the instructional support levy.
I'll second.
Oh, sorry.
We'll give it to Carol. With Carol at the second, any further questions or discussion from the board? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is the adoption of board resolution for a budget adjustment. And it's a guarantee.
And this budget guarantee, I apologize. I realized after Kathy and I met on Friday, I've been explaining budget amendment to the board. This is a budget guarantee. Whereas if SSA is low enough, the state promises 101%. And so you pass the guarantee so that we're willing to accept 101% of last year. Versus what I was explaining was budget amendment. If you have if you're spending slightly different in your cost, and that usually comes in May. So, Kathy, anything else to add on a budget adjustment? We're accepting, it's part of passing our budget is saying that we want the 101%.
Yeah, and it all depends on the SSA.
And it all depends on the SSA, which we'll talk about more later, but not knowing SSA, makes it difficult.
Right, because that has not been
Set.
That has not been set yet. Okay, so. I'll wait for questions or comments or a motion to pass this procedure.
I move that we pass the board resolution for the budget adjustment as written.
I second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is approval of the AEA Food Service Purchasing Agreement.
So this is one of those things that I don't even think gets talked about a lot with the AAs, but one of the services that the AAA provides is just a group buy consortium for getting going out and getting bids for food and other food service items. So we want to continue in this. Obviously, there's lots of talk about AEAs and not much about the food service, but as soon as it was kind of stuff about AEAs was coming out, Mr. Elliott was sending me an email right away. It's like, if that goes away, I'm gonna miss the food service purchasing agreement. And obviously, we'll have to recreate one, but it's just nice that the AEA does it for us.
Mhm.
Great.
So obviously, I editorialized, all I had to say was this was a purchasing agreement, but yeah, it's the AEA organizes it for districts.
And this needs to be approved. There's a termination deadline that if it were to be terminated, it would need to be done before June 30th of 25.
Well, given that, this is something we've done every year since, as far back as I know, and I know it saves us a lot of money, as Mr. Elliott was, alluding to, I move to approve the food service purchasing agreement for the coming year.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we need to set a public hearing date for the middle school roof project for Monday, March 25th, 2024 at noon.
This is gonna be an opportunity for board to look at the rough plans and approve them at that meeting. It's a public hearing, so we have to set the public hearing and then we'll get that in paper 10 days at a time. And this is just the bid spec, so we're not approving the project yet, but timeline wise, we need to get this rolling. And so if we set the meeting Monday, March 25th, we'll get that published in Thursday's paper and meet that deadline and have our public hearing at noon on the 25th to review the plans.
I move we set the public hearing for March 25th at noon here at CAO, I assume.
Here at CAO, or for some of us, it might be virtual if we're at work or individual speech or wherever we're at.
Right, that date works for me. I will be virtual and that is a good time for me.
Works for me as well.
Okay, so we have a motion. I'll ask for a
And-
second officially.
I'll
Oh,
second.
Okay, Aaron
Go
gets it that
ahead,
time. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And next, we have to set a date for the middle school roof project bid opening, which is proposed for Monday, April 29th, 2024 at noon again, with the in-person or virtual
Yeah,
option.
in person or virtual option, we'll do that at lunchtime. This will be, so after the board approves the specs on the 25th of March, then they'll send out for bids. We'll get them back in. We'll have an opening and review with Shive Hattery. They'll make sure that all the bids are appropriate, and then they'd like to approve those bids at that Monday, the 29th meeting. So bid opening maybe is a bid reveal, I think is probably the better part. And as a reminder, this project will be over the threshold, which used to be 139,000. I think it went up, but if it went up to 179, it's still going to be over. And so the district is required by state law to take the lowest bidder. unless there's a substantive reason for us not to.
Mhm.
So, but that's, Shive goes through that and makes sure that what they're bidding on is what Shive said that is required, and they'll help us with that process.
Right.
Do we need a motion here?
We do, yes.
Yes,
I'll move that we set the date for the middle school roof project bid opening on Monday, April 29th at noon.
And I will second that.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is approval of collaboration agreements for teacher education programs with Morningside University and UNI.
and this is an agreement so that we can have student teachers and other placements from Morningside and UNI in our buildings. Pretty common, standard kind of thing that happens this time of year.
Mhm. And I think this is a really good thing for the student teachers and for us as a district, so I fully support this. Do we have an agreement like this with Luther already in place?
Well, I was just, in my mind, I was like, better check and make sure we get Luther's, approved by the board. So I can't remember if we approved it this year.
No, we haven't.
Yeah, you know, I don't remember seeing agreements like this in the past. For all the schools that,
Oh, well,
It used to not come to the board, so I don't.
maybe bringing it to the board is one of those new Tim things.
yeah, which is fine, but I don't,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Is this an annual agreement that needs to be passed, or is this a one-time
Yeah,
thing? or-
so maybe I should back up just a little bit. So what we're doing is we're saying, yeah, we'll host your student teachers and, that helps us. So I've always taken them to the board at other districts, and the reason I do that is because if somebody's in our building, I want to make sure that like the board, you know, in general knows about it and people are kind of aware, and we're not just saying, you know, I don't know, I got like Bob's College of Ed or something, you know, wants to have a program and be in our schools, because there would be folks that want, you know, we have to make sure that we know who's coming into our buildings and not. And so obviously we've had good relationships with Luther, and I'm sure we'll get one signed by them. So maybe it was just approved at the superintendent level. Sometimes I bring things to the board that we haven't brought in the past, so,
That's okay.
yeah.
I think
It
it's
does
great to
say
know.
that this is just for this year. The terms of agreement is for the 24-25 academic year, so.
Yeah, I'm used to like this is kind of student teaching agreement season, and you just start popping them in your board packets and getting them approved and sending them back out, so. We'll make sure that we have all the ones that we would like to have student teachers from.
Are there any other schools, I mean, Luther, I was gonna ask the same question. Are there any other schools that we work with directly other than the three that we've
Upper
mentioned?
Iowa would be one.
Upper Iowa University. Mhm.
And I can just think it's good to have these in place, because in my like time in Central City, there might be somebody who, oh, I don't know, they're at Western Governors University or something, but they live nearby and they want a student teacher in your building, and you don't have that relationship that you maybe, the familiarity that maybe you do with Upper Iowa or Luther or even UNI, so that's why we'd always get those approved by the board, so.
Iowa State and Iowa too.
So yeah, I'm sure, especially with
Three
students.
regions typically will get it,
I mean, you know, we know.
yeah, so those three and then Luther, or Iowa, I mean, yeah. We may, you know, you may get somebody that is in another school that wants to teach here, in which case we'd probably want to enter into and bring.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. Somebody has whatever reason, I don't know, they're from UW-Madison and they want a student teacher Decorah, and we just go through the procedure and do the steps, but in the meantime, let's approve these two and then we'll work on the usual, partners and making sure that we have those for next month or May.
That sounds great.
I move that we approve the collaboration agreements for teacher education programs from Morningside and UNI.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, approval of a really positive resolution proclaiming that March is Music in Our Schools Month. And this was submitted by Matthew Cody, but I'll go ahead and read the resolution aloud just so the public can enjoy it too. So the resolution is to the school board superintendent and PTA, whereas for more than 30 years, March has been officially designated by the National Association for Music Education as Music in Our Schools Month, encouraging communities across the nation to focus on music education. And whereas music education is part of a well-rounded education for every student as outlined in the Every Student Succeeds Act, and whereas the purpose of this celebration is to raise awareness for the lasting positive impact of music education on the academic, personal, and professional growth of our students, and whereas music education shapes the way our students understand themselves and the world around them, allowing for a deep engagement with learning, and whereas Music in Our Schools Month reminds us that school is where all children should have access to music, and whereas music educators, students, and communities throughout Iowa demonstrate the importance of quality music education programs to the lives of young people. Whereas the state of Iowa joins our music students, educators, and communities in celebrating the power of music education. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Decorah Community School District does hereby proclaim that on March 11th, 2024, as Music in Our Schools Month, and encourages our citizens to celebrate and acknowledge every day, but especially in March, that music education is an essential part of every student's well-rounded education.
I'm very happy to support the motion and move its adoption.
I am too, and I'd like to also just point out that every month really is Music in Our Schools Month in Decorah. We have an excellent music program in every aspect in our district, and I'm really something that I'm really proud of.
Okay,
As a
we have
former
motion.
music educator myself, I will also move that we approve this, in second.
Great. Any further discussion or comments?
I just commend Mr. Cody for bringing this to our attention. I think this is the first year we've ever adopted such a motion, but I'm wondering why we didn't 30 years ago.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries and the resolution is adopted. Next is discussion and possible approval of supplemental state aid rate for the fiscal year 25 property tax rate publication. And as we mentioned earlier, this has not been approved yet at the legislative level in the state of Iowa. It has passed the deadline, which is not uncommon. But Tim, do you want to give us an update on what's next?
Sure. So there's a couple things happening. As President Goodner said, there's a state supplemental aid deadline that I think by law or guideline is supposed to be set 30 days after the governor presents the budget. So, but it just doesn't always get adopted.
Never get it done.
So that's a struggle because we're trying to have teacher negotiations. We're trying to make a budget. We're trying to get going on the year, and we don't know these things. Then a new wrinkle this year is Kathy needs to get this proposed budget to the auditor by March 15th. So the auditor can send out, is it a property tax notice?
Correct.
Basically, how the school budgets and other budgets are going to impact your property tax. So it was part of the taxpayer bill of rights. So not knowing what SSA is, we have to pick an SSA. And just the rule of thumb is the more SSA that we get, the lower our property tax would be. So if we think SSA is gonna be 2.5 and we put 2.5 in, or we put in 3, then we kind of get the budget to where we want it to be, the tax rate where we want it to be. But if the state would not agree and come in at 1%, which I don't think they will, but they have in the past, then our property tax would be lower and we wouldn't be necessarily levying what we have in the past. We want to keep I provided for the board a little chart that Kathy works off of, and we've had a tax rate of about 12.35 to 12.40 for the last 4 or 5 years. So we've been pretty stable with our tax rate. We know that that's important for our taxpayers, but also as we kind of start talking about a bond referendum, is being able to say, hey, our debt's retiring, we want to have a flat tax rate. So all those factors coming in, the best thing that my recommendation, something that I've done in the past, but I haven't done it in the past in conjunction with sending out a letter about what your property tax is. But what we would do is be very conservative and say 0% SSA, which the tax rate then is going to be $12.55. And so by being conservative, we meet the deadline, we notify the auditors, he's gonna send out a letter. At the same time, we work with the local media and we explain, we have a letter that we can even share with them that says, hey, we're being conservative. The board will revisit this after SSA is set, because the board always retains the ability to lower the tax rate. So if we set it at 0 and we think that that's based on 3%, but we don't get 3% SSA, we can still reconvene as a board and lower the overall tax rate. And that's a practice that I've done in the past in Central City, because we had a number we couldn't go over as well. But by recommending that, we just have to make sure that we educate people, and people don't get all up in arms and saying, you're raising my tax rate 20 cents.
Right. And is it true to say that in the history of SSA that, has there ever been a year that it has been 0?
Yes,
Yes.
And when was the last time? Does anyone remember?
10 years ago.
Over.
However,
So
I would
there-
not expect that this year, because the legislature does seem to be putting out proposals that are supportive of schools. So I would think that it would definitely be above 0 if we could predict.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Carol. I'm just trying to, I guess, I do think it'll be above 0. Of course, you got to knock on wood when you say that, but until
Right.
it's set, I can't tell you what it's going to be. And that's why when Kathy and I are looking at it and she's got to submit this, we can put in any percent we want, but just understand, if we would set it at 2% and if for some reason they come back at 1%, then that would lower our tax rate, which
Mhm.
that would also mean that we're levying less money, and we're gonna have less money to put into, would probably come out of management and instructional support.
So by approving the recommended 3%, then we don't have the ability to, we don't have the ability to raise taxes later on.
Once we publish, we can
Right.
only lower.
Right.
We can put in 3% now, and then if it was 2%, we said, oh, we want to raise it a little bit. We would not be able to do that. You can only come down when you do a budget. I can tell you that Central City, we didn't have an income surtax, so our number was always $17.60. And that's what our tax rate was. And some years we approved like $17.85, and in the motion, they would say, I approve the tax rate at $17.85, comma, with the understanding we will revisit and approve so that it's $17.60 after SSA.
Mhm.
And that is a fine way to make a motion, because we want to honor and respect the taxpayers, but we're in a tough position. We're not, of course, every school district in Iowa is in this position, and
Right.
I keep seeing articles about this, and they're actually, Decorah News had one that they picked up, and it was like, I think that they were quoted a lawmaker saying school districts are flying blind, and we're not flying blind, but it's just difficult to do.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we're gonna be flying blind, but we're flying somewhere and we don't have any idea where we're going.
it's very dark out.
And I support this, and my comment on that was just for the public to realize that this probably is not what the tax rate is going to end up being. So I support this strategy. I think it's the best thing and the only thing really we can do at this point.
Yeah, I think the proposed letter also explains the situation clearly, and thank you, Dr. Cronin, for having, I mean, not only did he draft that for our reference and the taxpayers' reference, but he had it checked by experts of the state of Iowa to make sure that we were accurately articulating the situation that we're in. And yeah, we'll do more too with press releases to inform the public through our local media as well.
So we have I heard a motion, right?
There has not been a motion yet.
Well, there is now. I'll make a motion that we approve the SSA rate at 3% for temporary purposes.
But the 3% will, we want it at 0%, which is gonna make a tax rate of
Oh, yeah, okay.
$12.55. If I can interrupt that.
Yes,
No, I think it's important to make a motion having the correct information. So we'll back up a bit. So your recommendation, while we anticipate state supplemental aid coming in, or
Here's what I'd say. My recommendation is use 0% when setting the budget, which is gonna create a higher tax rate than we're gonna end up with at the end. But that gives us the most flexibility to lower it.
but we're,
So the wording of that is,
Yeah.
I recommend we use 0% SSA for our budgeting publication, with the understanding that the overall tax rate will be reduced after we know SSA.
yeah, so it's a conservative estimate.
I make a motion that we approve the budgeting process at 0% with the understanding and hope that it will be significantly different in its final form.
And I will second that.
Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is the superintendent's report.
And there's a lot of documents in there. I'm gonna probably take a pause, and one of the documents that isn't in there, but I maybe shared a letter with the board. We've been working on some mold remediation at John Klein. And so I got Greg Schaller here in the audience, kind of help give an update, but we discovered black mold. We clean it with our district staff. Then we wanted, for like peace of mind, we also hired Service Master. They came in and appreciated the work we had done, but they went through a process where they, stop them.
So Service Master come in, they redid the carpet. They also wiped down all the books. Then they brought in a UV light, which basically kills everything. And yeah, we opened it up and then we took air samples and we got some pretty good results back, but at the time, he could only come up with 10 samples, cartridges to take samples with, plus he was kind of crunched for time. So tomorrow we're actually gonna finish that building on the west side too, to get in there too.
So in addition to the hot spots that you wanted to test, the Service Master is coming back to test.
Actually, the testing was done by
Advanced.
Advanced Environmental.
Okay, so Advanced Environmental is coming back to the building tomorrow to test every single room.
Yeah.
In the building, for peace of mind for staff and.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's a pretty intense, aggressive plan, but we also know that staff and families are concerned.
Well, and we, there's a long list of things that are not ideal for that building. And we want to, in this complicated time, as we're, moving toward passing a school bond for a new elementary building, we want staff and students to be healthy and in a safe environment.
Mm-hmm.
We can make permanent changes.
Yeah. maybe swatting a fly with a sledgehammer, but I think it's the minimum that we need to do.
Yeah, yeah.
From my understanding, the cause of this was from cleaning the carpet. It was not something that has been an ongoing problem. It was a new problem that happened from shampooing the carpet, right?
My thought is that when we shampooed the carpet this summer, the bookshelves that were there had pressed board bottoms on them and it sucked it in and it wasn't able to get out good enough. And
Mhm.
this summer, when we shampoo that room, we're gonna get some dehumidifiers in there.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that's my thought, because we don't see any, leakage from anything else anywhere.
Mhm.
And of course, it's been just super dry, so.
Last summer, yeah, August,
Right.
it was the humidity, but even the humidity last August was in low thirties and high twenties at times.
And since last
Yeah.
August, the window units have been installed in the building, the air conditioning units. That was in the fall. So hopefully that this next summer, in addition to portable dehumidifiers, just those window units helping to control, I don't know if that would affect this space, but I'm hoping that that would have an impact on the overall humidity of the building.
Oh, yeah,
but-
I would think. I appreciate the thoroughness of all of the procedures that have happened to remediate this problem.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for being here to talk us through it. Any other questions for Greg?
So also in the, superintendent's report, we're working on, as we do the transversa, where we're scheduling the routes. One of the things that, Chris suggested we take a look at how we do for the rules for keeping the bus at home. And we didn't really have anything, so, that's just kind of a draft for the board to look at about what kind of rules would go in place if you kept your bus at home. I reached out to other, superintendents nearby. Clearly, we kind of just started with, well, we don't really want to have a whole bunch of people keep their buses at home, but if you're driving a route that's by your house, like if you live out by Highlandville and you drive the Highlandville route, it doesn't make very much sense for you to drive a car into town to get a bus to turn around and drive all the way back when we can do some savings there. So, that's just kind of a first look. We'll know more when we get the transversal routes back. So we just tried to put it in and we've kind of looked at it. If you as board members want to ask questions now, or if you want to review it, we just don't know how many people it will involve. In checking with the other districts, it's pretty common in other districts for drivers to take their buses home. Well, you finish your route and you just park at home, right? So it's not really taken home. The other thing that we don't have the capacity to do now, but we would, if we did this policy, is if you did your route during the day and you'd want to park it here at the bus garage and then get home somehow, not driving a school bus, because a school bus costs us about $4.50 per mile. So we would be putting unnecessary miles on a bus. So what the other districts is, they just have like vehicles that, you'd have a school vehicle that you drive home. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, but so that would be a cost that if we found some inexpensive, I guess, runner cars that the drivers could use during the day to get home and back to their bus, we would look at that, which would then ultimately cut our costs down on I guess we're not putting extra miles on the bus. We don't need to. So
Yeah, we're a uniquely large district as
Yes.
well, so that's to be taken into consideration. And the proposed policy, does have some parameters saying that a driver must live 6.5 miles from the bus barn, and this is going to be limited to a limited number of drivers.
yeah, and those are just kind of talking points. But that's kind of, we obviously want to put some kind of limit on, like if you live, your route should be closer to where you live than the bus barn. But again, if it's 1 or 2 miles, you can still swing by here and grab your bus. But, obviously we understand how large a district is, and there'd be parts, Burr Oak and Highlandville and out by Ridgeway where, it doesn't make a lot of sense to come to town as long as we can make it work, and so. I don't know if 6.5 is the exact number, but we put something in, so, we will look at it. We have about 4 drivers that keep their buses at home right now,
Okay.
so. But, that's anything we're gonna act on, because among other things, we haven't got our routes back from Transversa.
Are you planning to, and forgive me if you've already explained this, have you surveyed our bus drivers?
Chris has talked to them, all informally and
Okay.
kind of let them know, and I think he's even said, you know, we're looking at Transversa routes and we may need fewer bus drivers next year, because we may have some efficiencies that we can afford. And so, you know, he's kind of working with, okay,
Mhm.
are you driving the route because you really love to drive a daily route, or would you be okay being a sub? And,
Yeah.
so he's doing a lot of the software.
Given that we've consistently over the last several years been short of drivers or perilously close to being short of drivers, I don't think that's really a concern.
Yeah, I would say Decorah is probably more fortunate than lots of other districts in that we do have at least folks that can drive. I know there's lots of districts who it's, you know, they need folks, so, but yeah, we'll look at it. But Chris is, having a lot of those conversations.
Good.
So, there's a communication roadmap from, our friends at the Dolan Group about our, facilities project, and so we're kind of working on refining that a little bit. One of the things that we've had a discussion, especially at the facilities committee, about is just how much survey, how much need do we need to define, because this is an issue, the elementary school that's been ongoing for 13 years, so we're going back. Darlene collected, all the board minutes where it's been talked about, and there's a good list of board meetings where we talked about the need at the elementary, so we might be a little atypical in that sense. Our project might look a little different about how we go get started or enter into this point than maybe other districts do.
Mhm.
So I shared that, and then the roof replacement schedule, I suppose I should highlight. So we've got all these meetings, that we need to have, and one of the things that I had to be able to state with Shive Hattery was, when can they start construction? And so I did pick Tuesday, May 28th, which would mean that we really need school to end on the Friday before. Right now, that looks really good with school ending on like the Wednesday before. But I will say that once bids go out and we get an accepted bid, we'll really want to stick to that date. So if something crazy would happen where we'd have 3 more canceled days, and we would, you know, I would probably come back to the board and say, let's use hours and maintain flexibility, because we want to be able to get that project started as quickly as possible. And so the 28th it is. That's kind of a hidden little secret in the board packet, that school will probably end on Friday.
And just to back up a little bit, may I interrupt?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
In the communication roadmap that you talked about, while the project has been talked about for a long time, and we know that it's super important that we're moving toward a school bond for the November 24 election. I'm also really pleased to see, and I just want to say this out loud to the public, that there is a drafted communication calendar that outlines clearly a strategy for communicating with the public in the immediate future, with social media posts, email messages, because as a new school has been, you know, the land was purchased, we've hired an architect, a
Yeah.
communications consultant. Many people in the community have said, I haven't heard anything. What's happening? So that's all to come.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Like, they're working on a website that just talks about the project, and there'll be like a frequently asked questions, or just kind of, I don't know if it's frequently, but some of the questions that we get, like, what about this? What about that? I mean, you know, as we pointed out, we're really not talking about a where anymore. You know,
Right.
we did decide as a board the where. It's the you know, the how and the why that are maybe the questions that we'll be answering more of. But, you know, I had read some of the articles, but it wasn't probably until Darlene went and found all the board minutes. I mean, it's probably been discussed 24 times.
This
And a
horse is
need for-
thoroughly beaten.
This
Right,
horse
and
is-
Yeah, and hopefully through that frequently asked questions section, it can provide a little bit of information on how the board chose the location that it did after an exhaustive study of resources and potential sites, traffic flow, electric, water, the whole bit. So I'm so excited for that to come
Yeah,
together.
yeah, it's gonna be, and it's great that we have somebody that we can just feed information to and then they can put it together.
Right. It's just the added capacity that the school district needs.
Yep.
For sure. Great, okay. Thank you.
Good, thank you. We put the Chive Hattery service agreement, so we need the board president to sign that today. The new money calculator, that's just a tool from ISAB. When we know SSA, you can put that in and you can see what our actual new money, you can play with the rate. And so you can kind of get a feel for where we're on the budget guarantee and where we're off the budget guarantee. And then I did put, since we were talking about tax rate, Kathy does a little chart that you can see the tax rate history. So I had lots of attachments this month, but we'll probably see a couple of those documents again as we continue on.
Yeah, thanks. It is really helpful to have that tax rate history for reference.
Yeah, so I mean, you can see that, as a point of reference in 2018, 2019, we were $13.82. So. But that was before we combined.
Mhm.
So and ISL, so.
Mhm. Any questions for Tim about any of his reports or comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to our financial report.
On the cash flow report, year to date, we're up both in revenues and expenditures for income and expenses, and most of it is probably the turf project.
Mhm.
So we got reimbursed totally for that. Our accounts, as you can expect, save and capital is down from a couple of years ago, but then again, we've made a couple big purchases, so that's to be expected. Our nutrition fund is up, so is our activity fund. So with the nutrition, we have to try to get that in a lower state.
Mhm.
Chad is trying to do some more, purchases and he also wrote a big grant. So
Mhm.
that's all flowing to the nutrition fund, so.
Right, and I appreciate all the work that Chad goes through to have locally grown food and healthy food for our kids. So I hope that we can find a good balance and find some external grant money to help him continue with
Mhm.
all he wants to provide for our kids.
And then our debt service is also down, but then again, that's also because of, the debt running out. So we dropped from last year.
Mhm.
Other than that, we're on an even keel.
Do we have any ESSER funds left?
We'll have them all spent by the end of the school year.
Mhm. And the turf project was an
It was an
ESSER
ESSER project,
project.
yes.
That got approved by the state as part of their,
Right, and has been a delight for our middle school students and staff.
Yeah, it's, every day someone's saying something different about it, so it's really nice to have. And it's just a great asset for our school and the community as a whole.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, thank you.
A dry, clean space for kids to run.
Well, it took us a while to figure it out, but at least we got there.
Okay, any questions or comments for Kathy? Thanks, Kathy, as always, for all that you do to manage our budget. Okay, seeing we're at the end of our agenda, I'll call the meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will turn off the Zoom so that, we're not,
Where did they find this?